I work at a gas station in rural Pennsylvania. It's a boring job, but it's pretty easy and it pays all right. A few weeks ago, this new guy started. I'll call him Jeremy. Jeremy is weird. He's about 25 or 26, and he hardly speaks, but he's got the creepiest laugh I've ever heard. My boss and I have both noticed this, but it's never been a problem, so there's not much we can do about it. Customers have never complained about him, and he's always done his job fairly well. Up until a few weeks ago, anyway. That's when things started going missing. Employee theft can be a problem at any business that sells consumer goods, and there's only one person working at a time at this gas station. It's a pretty small place. About 2 weeks ago, my boss started noticing that we were short on motor oil. At first, it was a few containers at a time, then entire shelves and boxes from the back room. Pretty soon, entire shipments would be gone the day after we got them, and it would always be right after Jeremy's shifts. My boss has checked the security camera tapes from every single night he worked, but he could never catch him in the act. Jeremy would lock up at closing, then the motor oil would be gone the next day. My boss usually takes the tapes home with him to try and catch Jeremy stealing, but his daughter had a softball game last night, so he asked me to watch the tape for him. He offered to pay me overtime, under the table, so obviously I took that offer. There are 3 cameras, so he gave me 3 different tapes to check. I figured it would be a long night, but I'm trying to save up for vacation, so I really needed the money. I took the tapes home, popped them in an old VCR and sat back. 2 days ago, the last time he worked, Jeremy started at 4 p.m. Everything seemed pretty normal at first. He counted up his drawer, switched off with the girl who was working before him, and waited for a customer. The first person who came in was Mrs. Templeton. The timestamp on the video read 4:03, a regular. She picked up her cigarettes and a newspaper and paid with a 20. Nothing unusual there. The next customer was some local guy named Ron. He drives a motorcycle, usually comes in every few days. He filled up his tank, got a bag of beef jerky, paid with his credit card, and then left. Next was some guy with a cowboy hat. I'd never seen him before, but we get plenty of strangers passing through, just like at any gas station. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel, paid with a $100 bill, and went on his way. I sat back and sighed. The only thing more boring than doing this job is watching someone else do it. My boss's offer was enough to keep me watching, though, so I left the tape on. Everything seemed pretty normal. I had a feeling that if Jeremy was stealing motor oil, he knew we were suspicious of him by now. I didn't expect him to be dumb enough to let us catch him on camera. Things stayed boring and routine until about 5 o'clock. At 5:03, Mrs. Templeton came back in. She must have forgotten something, but she didn't. She bought the same pack of cigarettes as before, and the same newspaper. She paid with another 20. That's odd, I thought. But then again, she's a little absent-minded. I thought Jeremy should have told her she already got her smokes, but it's not against the rules to sell somebody the same thing twice. That's when Ron came in again. He bought another tank of gas for his motorcycle again. I later checked the outdoor camera because I thought maybe he had another car he wanted to fill up, and the same pack of beef jerky. He paid with his credit card again, no big deal. I figured this was just a weird coincidence. Mrs. Templeton is forgetful, and Ron probably owns more than one Harley. That's when the guy in the cowboy hat came back in. I felt a chill run down my spine. Don't get diesel, don't get diesel. I found myself whispering to my empty living room, but he did. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel and paid with another $100 bill. Every move he made was identical to his first visit, right down to the way he scratched his nose before he walked out. Either this guy is rich, owns a lot of trucks, and just moved into town, or something really bizarre was happening. I kept watching. Every customer for the next hour was the same as before. Every single one. I was seriously freaked out, and then at 6:03, Mrs. Templeton walked back in. She bought her cigarettes and newspaper and paid with a 20 again. I thought I was going to lose it. I only watched another half hour before I started fast-forwarding through the rest. It was all the same. Every customer would come in at the exact same times, exactly 1 hour apart. Now I know what you're thinking. That sneaky motherfucker Jeremy had messed with the tapes. He had run a loop of his first hour of business over and over. That wasn't the case. There are windows around the cash register area that the camera covers, and I watched the sunlight fade as time ran on. Jeremy's routine didn't loop over. He swept, mopped, restocked, and did all his duties exactly how you would expect. But the same customers kept coming in. I was panicking at this point. Something was seriously wrong with what I was seeing, and I had no explanation for it. I skipped ahead to when he locked up and walked out to his car. He hadn't stolen anything, but I kept watching, just to make sure. I fast-forwarded one last time to about midnight. At exactly 12:03, out of nowhere, Jeremy's face pops up on camera. I don't mean he moved his head into view. I mean that 1 second, the store was empty, and the next, his face was all I could see. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at me, I was sure of it. I screamed and fumbled for the remote. By the time I grabbed it, he was gone, just as soon as he had left. One frame he was there, the next he wasn't. My hands were shaking like crazy, but I popped in another tape. The other indoor camera shows the back area by the cash register, and I would be able to see how he got up to put his face in the camera like that. I skipped ahead to 12:03, but there was nothing. I would have been able to see him standing on a chair or something on this tape, but he wasn't there. I didn't see him enter the store at all after he left. It's like he wasn't really there. He doesn't know the security code, and no alarms were triggered that night after he locked up. What I did see, however, was that at 12:03, the motor oil vanished off the shelf. All of it, same as Jeremy's face. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. I turned that tape off and went to bed, but I didn't get a wink of sleep. My body is exhausted right now, but my mind is racing. That tape was undoubtedly the creepiest, most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. I work in a few hours. My boss asked me to bring the tapes back in and let him know what I found. But really, what the hell am I going to say? Jeremy works the night shift tonight, directly after me, and the plan is for my boss to come in just before I leave and confront him with me, as I'm supposed to be the one who caught him stealing. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I suppose I'll have to show my boss the tapes, but I don't want to watch them with him. I never want to see something like that again. I can't get the image of Jeremy just smiling directly into the camera out of my mind. It was the creepiest look I've ever seen on another human being's face. Anyway, I'm going to try again to get some last-minute sleep before I have to go in and deal with this. I'll let you guys know what happens. Update, 2:49 p.m. Updating from my phone. Apologies in advance for any errors. My boss just finished watching the last of the tapes. I told him what to expect, but you really can't prepare someone for something like that. He's scared shitless. I still am too. And Jeremy is due to come in at 4. We've got a little over an hour to get our shit together. But neither one of us knows what to say to him. Is he just a fucked up guy who likes to steal motor oil and scare the shit out of people? Or is he something else? I don't know if this is crazy, But does anyone think he could have anything to do with the time loop? My boss said he never noticed anything like that in the other tapes, but the way he popped up in this one made me think he knew I would be watching. It's like he wanted me to see what he could do, like he was showing off or something. The way he smiled into the camera was like a little kid showing you a sandcastle they just built or something. I don't know, I probably sound crazy. I sure feel the part. I'm going to talk to my boss some more. We have to calm ourselves down and figure out how to handle this. I'll update again tonight, but I have a really bad feeling about how this is going to play out. Update, 4:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 5:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 6:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 7:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 8:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 10:58 p.m. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. I just got home and saw my previous updates. Things make less sense now than ever. Here's what I can tell you. I went to work. Jeremy never showed up. My boss and I decided to call the police, as you're well aware. When I picked up the phone to call, though the sun went out, I shit you not. That's what I thought happened. Apparently I blacked out for exactly 5 hours, because when I looked at the clock, it was 9:33. I think I got stuck in Jeremy's time loop, and then I snapped out of it at the exact point I blacked out, if that makes sense. But that's when things got really weird. My boss was right next to me when I blacked out, ready to corroborate my story to the cops. When I came to, the phone was in my hand, but it was dead, not even a dial tone. My boss was still right there, but he wasn't moving. He was standing up, but frozen. I looked at the clock again, and it wasn't moving. The second hand was stuck on the 12. It was 9:33 exactly. The clock on the register, computer screen, wasn't moving either. My phone was frozen. There was even a customer at the register, waiting for my boss to get him cigarettes. I'm betting that would have been his 5th pack of the day. I got the fuck out of there. Didn't lock up. Didn't turn the lights out. And sorry guys, I didn't grab the security tapes to upload on the internet. Believe me, that was the last thing on my mind. The gas station is on a major highway, and cars were parked all along it. Except they weren't parked. They were frozen. The people inside were sitting still as wax statues. I got in my car and prayed that it would start. Thankfully it did. About halfway home, time started up again. The static from the radio turned into music, like it's supposed to be, and from what I could tell by listening to the host talk. In between songs, no one noticed the time freeze, or whatever it was. I was the only one. Well, I'm sure Jeremy noticed as well. I still have no clue where he is or what he's doing. I'm hiding in my room and calling the police again in the morning. I don't know if I ever got through to them before, or if I did, whether they took me seriously. I'm scared for my life at this point. I'll update tomorrow if I can. Final update, 10:33 a.m. I finally fell asleep last night around 4. I have no idea how I did it. I guess exhaustion finally got the best of me. This morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was my boss. He'd been calling me since about 6. He woke up when time turned back on last night and immediately called the cops. They came by to see what was wrong and he told them everything. The police around here are all small-time guys. They were more concerned with the missing motor oil than anything, but my boss figured he would take it, as long as he had their attention. They decided to go looking for Jeremy. We keep all our employees' applications on file, and since Jeremy just started working here, his was easy to find. They checked the address on it and headed over to his house. You're not going to believe what they found. The address Jeremy listed on his application was an empty lot, or at least now it is. There used to be a house there, but it burned down in 1993. Being a small town, almost everyone remembers that fire. A family of 4 used to live there way back when. Rumor has it that they had an estranged son who they never really talked about, but I can't say for sure if that's true. What I can say is true is that after an insurance investigation, the fire was ruled an arson. The entire house was soaked in oil and torched with a Molotov cocktail. The entire family was sleeping when it happened. None of them survived. They never caught the guy who did it. Rumor has it that when they tried to contact the estranged son, no one could find him. Anyway, my boss called and told me this, and I freaked out. Then he asked me to come to the gas station. "What, are you crazy?" I said, but he assured me that the cops were there with him. Then he dropped a bomb. The FBI were also in town, and they were going to talk to me one way or another, so I might as well come in. It was about 7:15, and I wanted to go back to bed, but I figured I wouldn't be able to sleep much more anyway, so I went down. 4 men in suits greeted me and told me to have a seat. We went over everything 2 or 3 times until they got all the details down. I told them about Jeremy, the security tape, last night at work, everything. Finally, after I finished, one of the agents said, "Oh Christ, we've got another one on our hands." Then they made me sign a bunch of papers saying I wouldn't tell anyone about what happened, so I can't say much more. I might be breaking the law just by posting this. So now I'm home. I'm not sure what to do with myself. That agent's words when I told him the story are going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Anyway, I've got to go. I have some errands to run today, and then I have to go into work to pick up some tapes. My boss and I think this new guy, Jeremy, he's a complete creep, is stealing motor oil, and I have to watch the security footage to see if I can catch him doing it. I have better things to do, but my boss is paying me overtime, under the table, and I'm trying to save up for vacation so I could really use the money. It should be pretty simple. The oil always goes missing right after his shifts. I figure I'll just watch the tapes, catch him in the act, and that will be that. It was my first night shift. Working extra at a gas station is pretty far from every boy's dream, but it pays the bills. I was hell-bent on not having another opportunity slip out of my hands because of money. One small investment and a move to Minneapolis, and I would have had a 6-figure salary, but I just couldn't find the funds. So there I was, stocking the shelves at a gas station. Money is money, and there's plenty of future to go around, I figured. I'd worked a few day shifts before, so I knew the place well enough. However, I'd never been left alone for the night shift before. This was the first time I'd be completely unsupervised. Jada, my supervisor, was about to take off for the night. She kept repeating the same instructions over and over. Then again, this place had huge turnover. Maybe she honestly forgot I wasn't that new. "No phones," she urged. "If you got a slow night, make yourself useful. Nod and smile." I decided to get the worst tasks out of the way early, cleaning the bathroom, restocking the freezers, taking out the trash, checking the receipt rolls, watering the plants. Took me about an hour. It wasn't even midnight yet, and I was pretty much done for the night. I considered mopping the floor, but I figured I could save that for later. I'd been useful enough. I was on my 4th game of teamfight tactics when I realized I'd forgotten my name tag. No big deal, really, but figured I might as well fetch it. The manager's office was usually locked, but tonight I had the keys to it. I opened the door and started going through the drawers. Didn't take long to find the name tags. There was an entire box of them. At first I thought they were all blanks, but as I started going through them, I realized they were all previous employees. Sure, this place had high turnover, but we were talking 100 people. Easy. This was ridiculous. I admit, this is where I started asking myself some questions. During the day shift, there was always someone new, someone being trained or interviewed. I had only been there for about a week, and I was already feeling like a veteran. The only people who seemed to be regulars were the managers. Jada, Kennedy, and Alicia. They seemed decent enough, so why were so many people quitting? As I got back behind the register, I realized there was a customer outside, literally just outside the door. I waved at them. There was something off. They were just standing there, but they were so close that the automated doors should have opened. And yet, the door remained closed. It was a man, late 30s, scraggly beard, rough red shirt, bit of a chunky look, with sunken, bloodshot eyes and a natural frown. He just stared at me. I waved at him again, but I got no response. "Can I help you?" I called out. Nothing, not a blink. I pulled out a chair and sat down. The man stayed outside, looking in. I tried not to think about it, but it was bothering me. I couldn't see his car anywhere on the cameras, and he didn't seem to want anything. I couldn't tell if he was on drugs or just being weird. I gave him a few minutes, but he just stood there. Finally, I got up from my chair. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." He didn't seem to listen. He was a bit shorter than me, but he had a good 50 pounds on me. He'd be trouble in a brawl. "I don't want to call the police," I said. "Can I help you, sir?" I pulled out my phone and held it up for him to see. I dialed the number and held it up for him to see, but still nothing. Then my phone rang, unknown caller. It was just past midnight. Without letting the unnerving man out of my sight, I took the call. "Yeah," I answered. "Please don't hang up," a voice on the other end said. "You're in danger and I can help." I was getting nervous. I wandered back and forth, watching those bloodshot eyes follow me. "Who is this?" I asked. "I'm Angie," the voice responded. "I used to work there, same shift, same managers. I wanted to warn you." I'd seen an Angie tag in the box earlier, maybe even several. She sounded young and nervous as all hell. "In a few hours, something terrible is going to happen," she continued. "And if you're not out by then, you might as well be dead." "What are you talking about?" "Look outside." I'd been looking outside this entire time, but I'd been entirely focused on this one man outside the front door. From across the road, I could see more people. About a dozen, lumbering out of the woods. "I need you to leave," she said. "Just walk out. Nothing will happen if you just walk away. Nothing will come for you." Who are these people? What's going to happen? I don't know what... "Look," she interrupted. "It is perfectly simple. Just walk out the door." Something in me screamed for me not to do it, that I shouldn't step outside and walk past these people. They felt malicious, and I couldn't put my finger on why. Still, I stepped up to the door. Leaving seemed like the obvious choice. Strangely, it didn't open. "It won't open," I said. "Hold on. They want to keep you in there. They don't want you to leave. They want you to stay and die." "Die?" I asked. "What do you mean?" I stopped my pacing. Something was wrong. Was I locked in? "Tell me exactly what is about to happen," I demanded. Something is in there with you, Angie sighed. It could be 5 minutes. It could be a few hours. But that thing in there is coming for you. And what thing are we talking about? The man with the bloodshot eyes had 2 people joining him. A young man with a grotesque overbite, and a young woman who could easily be mistaken for a child. All of them stared at me with the same broken eyes and rough clothes. They stopped, inches short of the front door. It doesn't have a name, Angie said. But it'll leave you empty. It'll leave you like the people out front. But if I leave, I'll be okay. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. Hold on, I'll check the back. I hurried out back to the employee entrance. I pressed down the cold handle, and the door swung open. Outside were another group of 4 people. 2 young men, an older woman, and a girl no more than 16 years old. They all stared at me. I couldn't tell if they were drawn to me or the store. I stopped short of stepping through the door. Why do they come here? I asked Angie. They serve their master. They want the spoils. What spoils? What? I thought about it. She was talking about me. Right, I said, nodding to myself. I see. Are you at the back door? Are you there yet? Yeah, I'm here. Just walk out, she whispered. It's not too late. I was just about to walk out when a thought hit me. Why would they lock the front door, but not the back? That didn't make any sense. If the purpose was to keep me here, they could easily barricade the back as well. Something didn't add up. The door is open, I said. Great. You can still make it. Why wouldn't they lock the back door, Angie? She hesitated, and there was a brief pause. If they're locking me in here to hurt me, why wouldn't they lock the back door? I repeated. I don't know, she said. But you have to trust me. They gave me the keys, Angie. They go everywhere. I can lock and unlock this door 100 times. What's going on? They don't usually do that. I closed the door and stepped back. 4 less pairs of eyes staring at me. Look, said Angie. I was the last person to leave. They fucked up. I found a spare key and got out before it was too late. Maybe they figured I'd warn you. Maybe they're trying to trick you. Sure, yeah, I chuckled. Convenient. I'm trying to help you, she cried out. Those things out there are to discourage you from going outside. They're harmless, but they're there to scare you. Can't you see it is all just a way for them to keep you in there? I got one person screaming at me to go outside, and no one telling me to stay. No locked doors, just plenty of fucking creeps staring at me. What am I supposed to believe? Fine, you want more proof? Call the police, hang up and call them. I ended the call. There were 8 people out front by now, all gathering outside the front door. I couldn't tell if they were trying to get in, or if they were waiting for me to step out. I called the emergency services, only to be met with silence. Not even a dial tone, just a blank nothing. I tried a few more numbers, my mum, my friends. I tried going online, but all I got was cached copies of sites I'd been to before. My background picture had changed to a black screen, but there was something else. Something had started to smell. The freshly stocked frozen goods had suddenly gone bad, and a stench was oozing out of the freezers. Our flowers by the counter had withered and died, all except the sunflowers, which had turned a sickly blue. I wasn't getting through to anyone. Being inside was awful. The single-serving frozen meals were making me gag. I figured I'd go for the landline. As I got in the manager's office, I got another call on my phone. Unknown caller. Looking back and forth between my phone and the landline, I weighed my options. I chose Angie. How are you getting through? I asked her. How do you know my number? I still got the email password. I just checked your application. But how come your number works? Everything else is down. I'm calling from a private network, she said. They don't know there's a way in. They? I asked. I thought it was just one thing. No, they're working together. People don't just go missing without someone noticing. So there's like an intelligence behind it. Conspiracy. Yeah. People come and go in these places all the time. Are they paying you under the table? They figured it was sort of a trial and no paperwork, no missing people, no records, just a box of name tags. It made sense in a way, but I needed more. I needed proof. There had to be something. Why didn't you call me earlier? I asked. You could have called me as soon as I got the job, or as soon as my shift started. I had to make sure Jada wasn't around, she said. She would have tried to trick you. I'm not sure you're not trying to trick me. Why would I spend my time calling you from across the country just to have you fail? She screamed. If I was part of this, I would have just let you sit there with your goddamn teamfight tactics and die. She went quiet. So did I. I counted my breaths as I looked outside. There were more of them now. How did you know what I was playing? I asked. She didn't respond. The silence hung in the air. I'm asking you, how did you know what I was playing? She was just as quiet as the man with the bloodshot eyes, still waiting for me outside the door. You're watching. You knew I was alone. You knew I was getting antsy about the guy showing up outside. Yeah, she sighed. You tried to get me out as soon as he showed up. You tried to trick me before there were too many of them to scare me off. That's not... She sighed. I could hear heavy breathing. As I paced back and forth, I was getting ready to hang up. This was a trick. She was the one tricking me, clearly, trying to get me outside, to join those things. I know this looks bad, she said. I know. I'm sorry. I'm honestly just trying to help you. This time I was the one keeping quiet. I walked up to the door, studying the people outside, blank stares following my every move. I felt like a snake charmer, like they could snap out of it and tear me apart in the blink of an eye. As I said, I have the passwords for everything. I'm the only one who knows them. I just wanted to give you the best shot at getting out of there. I hoped they wouldn't come tonight, but as soon as they did, I had to do something. You're not being honest with me. I'm not lying. I'm just having a hard time explaining it. There's a lot of shit about this that all sounds completely insane. I don't want to throw you off the deep end. Give it to me straight, I demanded. Tell me what the fuck is coming for me. It's not a thing, like not real. It's there, but it's just... I don't know how to explain it. It just steps through. Steps through what? The world, the air, a ripple in time or something. It just steps in and it's there. And then it shoves some kind of mouth spike into your head and gargles up something inside. A mouth spike? What the hell are you? Yes, a spike. And no, I mean, it goes into your mouth. It doesn't have a mouth of its own. It just goes into you and gone. Game over. I didn't know what to think. My mind was a jumbled mess, and I felt my pulse rising and falling. There were over 18 people outside in various states of disarray, all of them just staring at me. If I just stepped outside, I'd know for sure. What does it look like? Does it... The lights flickered. There was a loud hum, a buzz, and then an electric failure. One of the fluorescent lights burned out, while the others just slowly dimmed to nothing. This was real. It was make or break by this point. Something was happening. The lights went out, I whispered. Is this now? Angie screamed. Get out now! I ran. I tripped and tumbled my way into the back room in complete darkness. I almost twisted my ankle as I bumped into the lunch table. I could barely hear my thoughts, and I had to remind myself to breathe. The roof of my mouth ached, as if anticipating a piercing pain. I could feel my head filling with blood and adrenaline as my dry eyes refused to blink as I put my hand on the back door. I did the mistake of pulling instead of pushing. It took me 3 tries before a thought hit me. I couldn't see the sign on the door because of the darkness. In fact, I couldn't see anything, nothing. Angie, I wheezed, putting my phone to my ear. You there? Hurry, she screamed. You can make it. How did you see it? The thing was huge, it just... No, how did you... You see it in complete darkness. You said the lights went out. It was right there. I can't even see the sign on the back door. How the hell did you see a spike? Look, And to add to that, how the hell do you know what it does with that spike? You've never seen the thing kill. You said you were the last one to work this shift, and the thing sure as hell didn't kill you. You're missing the point. It doesn't add up, Angie. None of this adds up. You couldn't have seen it, and there's no way for you to know how it kills. I stood there in the dark. I heard Angie panting on the other side, matching my breathing. You're lying to me, Angie. You're not trying to save me. She stopped breathing. For about a minute, it was just quiet. The call ended. A wave washed over me. I was either dead or saved. There was no in-between. I was moments from finding out. Every little sound shook me. A breeze, just outside, a crackling wire, ventilation struggling to turn back on. I hadn't even noticed my hand was on the door handle. You lied to me. You did. I caught you. There was a sound coming from the other side of the door. A shuffling of feet. Yes, said Angie. From the other side of the door. I must have stood there for an hour until the power came back on. The people outside were gone. Angie was gone. My phone worked just fine, so I called everyone and just cried for help. The police found me locked in the bathroom in a full panic, and I barely even remember being escorted out. Cameras had picked up a mob gathering outside, but that was pretty much it. They couldn't be identified from the back of their heads. Jada and the other managers were called in, and they seemed genuinely surprised. I've since looked it up. 100 people starting and quitting their job in a place like that isn't uncommon. People come and go all the time. The managers honestly didn't know why people disappeared, it seems. Maybe this is just how things work. Or maybe there's more than one Angie out there, preying on short-term workers. And the front door, there was no conspiracy there. The thing just jams sometimes. Some kind of trouble with the wiring. If I'd messed with it just a bit more, the thing could have kicked wide open. That broken door was the only thing that saved me from joining them that night. I would have walked right out as soon as Angie asked me to. I worked there for another 4 months, but just day shifts and weekends. The night shifts seemed to go off without a hitch, though. Maybe Angie and her friends moved on from an easy meal. I've saved up enough money for my move to Minneapolis, but I'd never forgive myself if I didn't put this into writing. Looking back at it, it feels surreal. There are things out there, things that want us to join them. About 3 months ago, I finished high school. I'd recently lost my job. I was in desperate need of money. I had stopped at a gas station to get myself some breakfast. I saw a hiring now flyer on the front door, paying $19 an hour for the night shift. I thought this was too good to be true. I made my way to the guy up front. "Hey, I see you guys are hiring for the night shift," I said. "Yep, the last guy quit because the rules were too hard to follow." "So we need another night shift worker," he said. "Well, do you mind if I apply for the job?" I asked. "No need to apply. As long as you show up, we'll pay you." "The shift starts at 9 and ends at 5, he said. "All I have to do is show up?" I asked. "Yep, no application required," he said. "Guess I'll be here at 9, I said. As I went to my car and got it, I kept on thinking to myself, $19 an hour, that's a steal, I thought. When I got home, I had to rest as much as I can if I'm working the night shift. When it was time to go, I got up, got dressed, and went off to work. When I got there, the same man was still there. He handed me my uniform and gave me a list of rules. "If you follow the rules, you will be just fine," he said. "Should be easy enough," I replied. Keep in mind, this gas station was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woods. As he left the gas station, I started reading the rules. Rule 1. If a man with a black suit walks in, compliment his suit and give him a pack of cigarettes for free. If this rule is not followed right, you won't like the outcome. Rule number 2. If you hear a low groaning moan come from outside the door, duck under the counter and wait until you hear the door open and the groaning stops. Rule 3. When it's 1:53 a.m., go outside and say, "You look beautiful today," and wait until you see a woman in a white dress appear across the street, then go back inside. She likes it when you compliment her beauty. Rule 4. If you hear a little girl's laughter outside, run and lock all the doors and turn off all the lights and hide under the counter till the laughter is gone. If you fail to do so, it will come get you. Rule 5. If you hear growls coming from the bathroom, grab a bag of chips off the shelf and throw them into the bathroom without looking. If you manage to fail, let's just say you will be the chips. Rule 6. If you have to use the bathroom at all, throughout the shift, don't use stall, 4, or urinal 2. Rule 7. If a blue minivan pulls into the parking area, make sure you turn around at all times and avoid eye contact if they ask to buy something. Say, "It's on the house." When they leave, make sure you hear the minivan pull off before you turn around. They might just still be there. Rule 8. If the lights randomly go out at any time during your shift, lay down on your back and close your eyes until you hear a demonic scream, then get up and turn on the lights. Rule 9. If you are working and hear tapping coming from the window next to you, keep doing your job and ignore it. It might begin to tap louder. If so, just keep ignoring it. When it stops, you can safely look out the window. Last but not least, Rule 10. If an old man comes in asking you if you know where his wife is, say, "She isn't here right now. Check here tomorrow night." He will walk off into the woods, and you can continue with your shift. When I finished reading the rules, I was really confused. I thought this was a joke being played on the new guy to scare him. Then I thought about what the guy told me about the last guy, that he quit because the rules were too hard. It was already 9:30 and nobody had come yet. That's when a small Ford truck parked itself outside. A woman walked in and bought a bag of chips and paid for gas for her truck. That's probably going to be the only normal thing to happen tonight, I said to myself. I waited there for a couple of minutes while the buzzing of the lights filled my ears, followed by the sound of crickets chirping. It sounds peaceful, I thought. Then I started thinking about the rules. There's no way that the rules are real. An old man won't just come into a gas station in the middle of the night asking for his wife. I decided to get up and start mopping the floor. I might as well do something while I'm here. After all, there is no cell surface. While I was mopping the floor, I heard the slightest tap coming from the right of me. I froze. It sounded as if a long fingernail tapped on the window. That's when I remembered Rule 9. If you hear a tapping coming from the window, Next to You Don't Look. I stood there frozen in fear. Then another one. I was shaking at this point. Then it started tapping faster. I started to sweat nervously. The taps were getting more aggressive and harder. It sounded like the glass was going to break. I thought whatever was tapping on that window was going to break through and kill me. Then the tapping stopped. I stood there staring at the wet ground for a good 5 minutes before I looked up and looked at the window. There wasn't anything there. I now believed these rules were no joke. I finished mopping the floor and went back to the counter and began reading the rules again. I was sitting at the counter reading a hunting magazine. I heard the bell on the door ring, indicating someone had walked in. I looked up and I saw a man wearing a black suit with a fedora on with sunglasses. I remembered Rule 1. "Hello, sir. Nice outfit you got on. It looks really good on you," I told him. "Thanks. My wife made me buy it." He responded. "May I offer you a pack of our finest cigarettes for free?" I asked. "That would be nice," he responded. He took the cigarettes and walked out the store. That wasn't too hard, I thought. About 3 hours later, at about 12:30 a.m., nothing has happened since the guy with the suit. I was getting really bored at this point, so I got up and went to see if there were any books I could buy. I couldn't find anything but beauty magazines. While I was looking through the shelves, I heard a groaning noise. It sounded as if a old man had broken his hip. I remembered something about this in the rules. I ran over to the counter and hid under it. While I was waiting there, the bell on the door rang, letting me know something was inside. I could hear heavy breathing mixed with heavy footsteps. Fear had filled me, and I sat under the counter as the thing inside the store was looking for me. While waiting, that thing seemed to call out for me. "Connor, come out. I need to tell you something," it said. The scariest part of all was that it was calling my name in my mother's voice. It did this for a good 15 minutes before it decided to give up and leave. When I got up from under the counter, there wasn't anything in sight. I continued on with my shift. While sitting there thinking about what happened, the door opened again. I screamed. It turned out to just be a regular customer. "Sorry I spooked you," the guy said. "You're good," I replied. "I was wondering if I could pay for some gas," he asked. "Sure thing," I responded. 2 gallons is what I need," he said. "All right, that will be $43, I said. He paid for his gas and drove off. After that, I was sitting there bored and wondering what I could do since there wasn't anything I could do. That's when the lights started flickering. Then the lights went out. I was confused for a moment. Then I remembered to get on my back and close my eyes. I was lying there on the ground in the dark. I felt a gush of hot air hit my face. It felt like something was breathing onto my face. I wanted to open my eyes really badly, but I knew if I did, it would be the end of my shift. That's when I felt something warm and slimy go up my leg. It felt like something was getting a taste of its next meal. I refused to open my eyes or move. I was terrified. As long as I didn't move and kept my eyes shut, I would be fine. I felt something drag across my leg. It felt like a claw. I closed my eyes even harder, trying my best not to make a single peep. That's when I heard a loud screech. It sounded like that of a woman with a demonic tone. Then it was quiet. I was scared to open my eyes. I felt like this thing was trying to trick me, that it was gone, so I would open my eyes. I was laying there on the cold tiled floor with my eyes closed in the dark. I waited there silently for about 4 minutes. When I opened my right eye, the coast was clear. I got up and ran to turn on the lights. When I flicked the switch, I could hear the buzzing of the lights again. I felt relieved that I was able to survive. I sat there staring at the clock. The time was 1:52, and I was about to have to do the next rule, When the clock hit 1:53 a.m., I went outside to the middle of the parking lot and said, "You look beautiful tonight." I waited there, waiting for my key to go back inside. That's when I saw under the street lamp, across the street, a beautiful pale lady with black hair and wearing a white wedding dress. Once I saw her, I went back inside and looked out the window. She had vanished. That was a really easy rule, I thought to myself. After waiting for a bit, I found a little one-player board game I could play while I'm bored. While I was playing the board game, I heard a loud, demon-like growl come from the men's bathroom. I fell out of my chair out of being scared like that. I ran as fast as I could to grab a bag of chips. While I was panicking to grab a bag of chips, I failed to notice I ran on the floor I mopped earlier. I slipped and fell on my back. The pain was unbearable. I could barely even move. I watched as the men's restroom door began to creak open. I knew I wouldn't make it in time to throw the chips into the bathroom. I felt hopeless, all my hard work coming crashing to the ground because of a wet floor. That's when I got the idea. I would try and throw the chips through the gap in the door. I grabbed the chips and got up. I aimed with my left arm and threw the bag. I saw as the bag went through the gap and into the men's bathroom. The door slammed shut, and the growling stopped. I went back to the counter and sat there. My back was still aching after hitting the ground so hard. I decided to walk around the store a little bit and see if it helps the pain. After I finished walking, I saw out of the corner of my eye headlights to a car. I turned and looked out the window. There was a blue minivan. I ran over to the counter and faced the wall. I heard 3 doors shut. When I heard the jingle of the bell, I heard many squeaky footsteps. It sounds as if they walked through a puddle. As they walked through the store, I could hear them pulling stuff off the shelf. I would like to buy this. Their voice had the cracky voice of an old man. "You don't need to pay. It's on the house," I said with a slight stutter in my voice. I heard the jingle of the bells. I heard 3 doors shut again. I heard a car pull off. I turned around, and there was no one to be seen. I let out a sigh of relief. It was about 3:34 a.m. I was almost asleep. I woke up to the sound of the bells jingling. I saw a little old man with a long white beard, pale. He looked like he hadn't eaten in months. "Have you seen my wife anywhere?" he asked. I thought for a moment. "No, I haven't come back and checked tomorrow." He stared at me for a few seconds, then walked out the store and into the woods. I was near the end of my shift, 4:30 a.m. I was about to take my money and never come back. I was staring at the clock when I heard something terrifying, a little girl's laughter. I scrambled to lock all the doors and turn off all the lights. Once I locked the doors, I shut off the light and hid under the counter. I then remember while I was scrambling to turn off the lights and lock the doors, I failed to get the back door. I froze in fear after realizing I had forgotten the back door. I heard a loud bang hit the front door. It sounded like someone or something was trying to force their way inside. Then it went to the window and I heard a loud bang. It was silent for the next minute. Then out of nowhere a loud bang came from the back door. Then I heard the door open. I heard heavy footsteps inside the office room. When I heard it enter the store area, I heard that same little girl laugh, this time. It appeared more demonic. "You can't hide from me." I laid there under the counter, helplessly for the next 27 minutes as it looked for me. I heard its heavy footsteps make its way towards the counter. I was extremely terrified. I was shaking uncontrollably, and tears began to run down my face. As it was about to find me, I heard a noise, a beeping of a watch. I had forgotten that I had set my alarm on my watch when it was 5 a.m. Then I heard a demonic screech, that of many different creatures mixed together. I had done it, and I was able to survive my shift. I got up from under the counter and made my way out the door. I waited outside for that guy to come back. When he eventually arrived, I took my payment and left without saying a word. If you ever find a job, and it's too good to be true, don't apply. It might just be the last job you ever take.